Welcome, everybody. This is a presentation by Sister Kathryn Grant on Family History Helper Series. It's aimed towards members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but all are welcome. We're grateful that you would join us today. On the screen, you will notice in red on the bottom, just a note, starting on Tuesday, the virtual help desk that's available from the BYU Family History Library will start at noon Mountain Time instead of 10 o'clock. And so that will change for all of the days of the week. So if you just be aware of that, please come and join us. We have amazing missionaries that would be more than happy to help. And so Sister Grant, we will turn over the time to you, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Elder Farnsworth. So you guys, I am so excited for this class today. This is actually one of my very favorite ones because I think it's where the rubber hits the road as far as doing family history. So we're going to talk about how to do a successful discovery experience. And Elder Farnsworth mentioned that this is the Helper series at the BYU Family History Library. It consists of 3 classes. Today's is the first one on doing a discovery experience, and it includes a demo. Next week, we'll be teaching skills for helpers, which actually dives deeper into creating a discovery experience. Today, after the demo, we'll have a quick little kind of preview, I guess you could say, of next week, how you do a discovery experience, or how you prepare rather. Next week, we'll dive deeper into teaching skills for helpers. In other words, how to prepare a discovery experience. And then the last one is ideas for moving family history forward in the Warden Stake. So hope you can join us for all 3 classes. If that doesn't work with your schedule, these classes are always recorded at 2 o'clock. In fact, the only time the library doesn't record the classes is at the presenter's request, which is actually very rare. There's some circumstances where, due to copyright or other personal concerns, whatever, they don't record the classes, but most of them are recorded, and the link will be in the handout that I give at the end of class today. So let's look at what we're going to be covering in this class. First of all, what is a helper? Just so we're all on the same page. Then what is a discovery experience? Then we will have a demo with Jody Baxter, who is in my ward, and she has graciously consented. She and I have actually already had a discovery experience, and she graciously agreed to come today. We had already planned to do a follow-up, and she's willing to share that with everybody. So we will be doing a second discovery experience with her today. And then finally, after the demo, we'll have tips for preparing, which will be a preview for next week. Okay, just to be clear, what do we mean when we talk about a helper? Basically, in the context of the church, and especially you'll see things on the website, on Family Search and on the church callings portion of the website, they'll refer to helper resources and you'll see the word helper used. So what is a helper? Really simple definition. It's a person who helps someone learn to love and do family history. So why do helpers matter? I was actually really stunned a few years back when I attended a training by Mike Sandberg at Family Search. He was a bishop at the time, and in addition to his Family Search duties. So I just remember listening to him and just being so touched by the spirit that he brought to the presentation. He talked about some research that the church had done. And as probably a lot of you are aware, especially because this class caters to Temple and Family History consultants, for years, involvement of members has been pretty low as far as engaging with family history and especially submitting temple names. So but the church researchers found something interesting. They found that there were a group of people who had not been submitting names, and then suddenly they went to submitting names regularly. And of course, the church was wanting to know, how did people make that transition? What caused them to go from like 0 to 60 in a short period of time? And so they went out and talked to people in different countries, not just the United States, but interviewed the people, watched them work and so forth to answer this question: how do we get people from not doing anything to becoming engaged regularly with family history? And what they discovered was that 85% of the people that they talked to had a helper or a mentor, we could say, somebody that guided them to have success on their own family history. Of that group, 65%, so way over half, getting close to 2/3, got help multiple times. So it's not just a one and done thing where we go, oh, okay, I met with someone, I've taught them family history. It's like family history is kind of like learning an instrument or learning a sport. It requires ongoing engagement and ongoing practice. You don't just master it in, one or two sessions. So that I'm sure that is why the people who were successful, many of them got help multiple times. So a good helper is an important key to success. And you know what? See right here, there's supposed to be a key graphic. I do not know why it's not showing up, but imagine a key graphic there. So a good helper is an important key to success. And the great thing is we can all become effective helpers. Notice it didn't say genealogical expert or credentialed researcher, nothing like that. It really, what you need to do to be a good helper is have a desire to help, have a willingness to learn yourself, and then learn the basics of family history enough that you can help other people. And can I make another comment? I actually had not planned on saying this, but it came to my mind. So I will mention it in case it's helpful to somebody on this call. When I got my first temple and family history calling, I was living in the Bay Area in California in a little town called Gilroy, one of my favorite places I've ever lived. I got a call to be a temple and family history consultant, and I was clueless. Like I knew nothing. I was kind of panicked, and my mom had done family history forever. So I'm like on the phone with her, Mom, help. What do I do? I don't even know how to do this. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of good training online, and there wasn't a lot of good training even available in our state. Just it kind of was all new for everybody. Family Search was fairly new. And so I just felt like I was adrift. But let me tell you something really cool about the way the Lord works in situations like this. So I just decided, okay, I'm going to move forward with faith that the Lord will help me fulfill this calling. What I discovered as a new consultant was that the Lord put me in touch with people whose challenges were doable for me. They were at my level. And as I progressed, as I kept helping people, I would learn. And then I would also study on my own. And I do my own family history, which is a great way to learn. So as I kept doing those things, and building my skills, then I found the Lord would put me in touch with people with harder problems, but I was being prepared to solve them. So, what is so cool about any service, I think, in the church is that the Lord, wasn't it Neil A. Maxwell, that said he qualifies those he calls? So we don't have to worry that we're not experts when we first get called. We just have a desire to thrust in our sickle for the work. And as long as we do that and we keep praying and trying to improve and serving, the Lord helps us build the skills that we need. So I hope that's helpful to somebody in the class today. But if you're feeling overwhelmed and like you can't do this, let me bear my testimony to you that you can do this. You truly can. The Lord will help you. And there's so many resources available to help you build your skills, one of which is this class today, hopefully. So, with all that as a backdrop, what is a discovery experience? Very simply, it's a spirit led experience prepared by a helper ahead of time that helps people discover something about their family. Notice it is not really it doesn't jam you into a box of what you have to do. Like it doesn't say it helps you research your family. It doesn't say it helps you take photographs of your family. It doesn't tie you down that way. Basically, it's a helper helps somebody make progress on their goals, whatever they are, in family history. And after doing discovery experiences for probably, oh gosh, I don't know, about 5 years or 7 years or something, ever since the concept was rolled out at Roots Tech. I've had a variety of wonderful different experiences. They're different for every person. And the thing that drives them is the goal of the person, what they feel prompted to do or what they feel drawn toward. So as a helper, you just prepare to help them. Pretty simple, huh? So what is the purpose of a discovery experience? Or actually, we'll go over multiple purposes. The purposes are to help people first and foremost feel the spirit, because if people feel the spirit, they're more likely to continue engaging with family history. When people feel overwhelmed or criticized or judged, because we all know that has happened sometimes with overzealous family history consultants that are, maybe a little more like used car salespeople or whatever, and they're like, "You must do this, and I'm coming to your house," and I stay for 3 hours. That does not help people feel the spirit. So we want to be sure that what we're doing really will help people feel the spirit, and it should also help them connect with family. That's one of the huge purposes of family history, obviously. We want to help them meet their family history goals, have success, and gain confidence that they can do this, and then also feel motivated to keep going. It's not just a one-time thing, a flash in the pan, but they should make this a part of their lives in order to gain the great blessings that come from it. Another purpose that is huge on discovery experiences is that it helps with one of the hardest parts of family history, and that is finding a good starting place. That is particularly true for people who are asking for help with temple work. So I want to share with you two approaches that we can take as temple and family history consultants. And I've actually tried both of them, and I have friends who have tried both. So speaking from experience, I can say that one is definitely more effective than the other. So the first approach we could call the pasta approach. And that is when you toss some random activities at the person and just kind of see what sticks. This is an actual photo of a friend of mine. It's actually her. She took it at her friend's house, not at her own house. Her friend's mom would let them throw spaghetti at the wall. Her own mom would not. So I can see why. But anyway, she took this photo of the spaghetti that they had thrown at the wall and gotten to stick. And so that can be that kind of random approach. Sometimes consultants do that for various reasons, and it can be moderately effective. But what I found is there's a better approach, and that is what I might call the trail guide approach, which is you learn the person's goals, then prayerfully prepare an experience to meet those goals. And this photo from Unsplash, I actually chose this intentionally. I know this is really small here, you guys on the top, but some of you, especially if you served a mission in Brazil, may recognize this is the Christ the Redeemer statue. And oh gosh, I want to say Sao Paulo. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I do remember that it's in Brazil. Anyway, notice that the tour guide is with his people that he's taking on the tour, and he's pointing up there to the Redeemer. And this is what we as family historians want to do as helpers. We want to do, we want to point people to the Savior, because ultimately that's what family history and everything else in the gospel is all about, is bringing people on both sides of the veil to the Savior. So to compare those two experiences, the pasta approach honestly doesn't take a lot of effort. 5 minutes before you meet with someone, you could say, "Oh, I'm just going to have them look at the activity page on Family Search and just try whatever." The trouble with this kind of random, unprepared approach is that you since it's random, the effect is also random, so it may or may not be meaningful. There's times when I've heard of a spontaneous thing being very meaningful, but in my experience, much of the time it is not. And I think part of the reason is, if we could put thought and effort into preparation but choose not to, I'm not sure that we get the same blessings from the Lord as we would if we actually made the preparations that we were able to do. And I know sometimes you don't have the time to make preparations, but if you have the time and choose not to, I don't know, just my personal opinion, it seems like we might not get the same level of help from the Lord as we do if we carefully prepare. And I found that the pasta approach tends to be short term in its effect. So people might enjoy it for a day or a few hours or whatever, but then they don't really keep up with it. Whereas trail guide approach definitely takes more effort, but it's usually meaningful and leads to long-term involvement, and especially it invites the Spirit. So with that being said, Jody, could you share your screen and we're going to go ahead and have a demo of our discovery experience. Okay, I am ready. Well, Jody, can you say something just so we know the audio is working?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you. Yes. I just wanted to make sure before we got going. So Jody, last time you might remember we worked on Arthur William Hunt in your family, and you were able to add his information and reserve some names for temple work, which was so exciting for all of us. We did this in Relief Society, actually. So it was so cool. So Jody, for today's experience, I wondered how you might feel about working on Arthur's sister, because it looks like she probably has some people that could be added to her. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Kathryn is the best helper you could ever have. So I just want to put that out there.
Thanks, Jody. Jody, wouldn't you agree that when we did this in Relief Society, the Spirit was really there?
Yeah, it was great.
And it was so cool. And that's why I love these, because they invite the Spirit and they help people realize how doable it is. In fact, Jody, do you remember when Sister Van Workum came up afterwards and she said something along the lines of, I didn't know family history could be so fun. And so that's one of the things of doing this type of demo is people are all, really, it's that exciting and that interesting. So Jody, can you go over to Family Search? And then I think Arthur might be on your recents, but I don't know. So if you can click recents and just, nope, he's not. I apologize. So I've got, oh, wait, it just didn't load yet.
Oh, there we go.
So, yep, that's the guy. Awesome. Yeah, I've noticed it's a little bit slower over Zoom sometimes, so I have to be sure not to be impatient. So Jody, can you scroll down to the family member section? And we are looking for, I'm going to drag my notes over to the other monitor. We are looking for his sister, Harriet Ann Hunt. Yeah, Jody, could you go ahead and click on her and then click her name and go over to her page? And what we want to do first off is just kind of familiarize ourselves with her critical information. So notice down there on the christening where she's the year, yeah, exactly, the year and the place. So she's born in 65 in Birmingham, Warwickshire. And then can you scroll down to the family member section? And we just want to kind of get the context of their family. So just because I don't want to be the one doing all the talking, Jody, who are the parents of Harriet Ann?
Let's see. So,
yep.
George Hunt and Hannah Bennett.
George and Hannah, exactly. And then you can look down there and we see all the siblings. The reason that I like to do, I'm doing an editorial comment here to the class. The reason I like to do this with people when I do a discovery experience is that now if we go over to Ancestry or any place else with historical records, the context will be in our minds. So we'll be able to recognize if we've actually got the right records or not. So Jody, what do you notice about Harriet's spouse over there on the left-hand side?
There is none.
There is none, exactly. So should we see if we could find one?
Sure.
Awesome. So go ahead and scroll back up a little bit now that we've looked at the family. And over on the right-hand side, there should be a link to Ancestry. And if you could click that link, we're just going to do a search. And for those of you who have not used that partner search before, it's amazing. As you will see, it grabs all the information off the page that you're on in Family Search and runs the search for you. So you don't have to type in the stuff. You don't have to worry about, getting the date wrong or whatever. It just grabs it all and it tries to find records that match. I wonder if that's because of Zoom, because obviously you already had Ancestry open.
It is coming up just slowly.
Just slowly.
So, okay.
Awesome.
There we go.
So Jody, notice the results that have come up here. As you look at these, you know, maybe the first couple of them, do they look to you like a good match given the review that we just did?
So, 1865. Yeah, that looks.
Yeah, as I look at them too, that's what I thought too. I'm like, they look like a pretty decent match. So as what I love about Ancestry is that they have really good suggested records. So why don't you pick one of those, either the 1871 census or the christening, whichever you would like. And let's click view record on the census, because if we clicked view image, it would actually take us into the image, and we want to look at the handwritten one, the one that's a little easier first.
Oh, do I need to go back?
No, you're in the perfect place. So scrolling down now, look at the kids and tell me if those kids look like a pretty good match with the family that was in Family Tree. And I will be honest with you, I've already forgotten who the kids are. And so if you want to, you can click back over to Family Search and check it. Although if you remember it, I didn't mean to make you go back if you remembered it, but I really didn't. So
terrible memory. Okay. George, Ellen. Yep. That looks reasonable.
They're lining up, right? It looks like this is really our people, or really our family that we're looking at. So now what I love, and we did this before in our last one in Relief Society, but notice the suggested records over there. What do you notice about her last name in 1911 and even 1891?
Different last name. Yeah, White instead of Hunt.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a good chance that that is her married name. But before we go off on that, what I always love to do is see if there's a marriage, because the marriage record itself is usually the best proof of whether this person that we already know, Harry Dan Hunt, really married of Mr. White and is the same person as in the 1911. So as you look at the suggested records, Jody, do you see a marriage record over there?
Marriages.
Yeah. Should we take a look at that? And I know it says hammock, but that looks like an indexing error to me. I could envision if there were two R's and they were a little sloppy, that maybe the indexer took them out as an M. So I think it's worth checking at least.
Okay.
So this doesn't tell us a whole lot right now. I mean, we see a spouse's name, right? But no parents, which there's like three things that we probably want to check on this marriage, Jody, to see if it lines up with what we already know. And those things are, let me get over to my notes here. First of all, is it the right father? So we remember that Harriet's father's name is George. Now she marries a guy named George, which that could get really confusing maybe. But on this index page, it doesn't show the dad. So we're going to have to look at the image. Can you click the image over there on the left-hand side? And then while that's loading, just as an FYI, did we look at a marriage record last time, Jody? I can't remember. Because tell me if this is redundant, and maybe it'll be helpful to people on the call. On English marriage records at this time, they will generally put 2 on a page. And you notice this is actually a 2-page spread. It's page 42 and 43. So we've got 4 couples to look at, and we've just got to find our couple. So we are looking for George White and Harriet Ann Hunt, and we want to see if her dad is George on this marriage record. And it might help to blow it up a little bit, Jody. Yeah, that's got to be them. And then the dad is going to be in the very far right-hand column for them. So George's dad is, can you read that? I'm having a hard time reading that. Oh, that helps. So looks like Daniel.
Is that David?
Yeah, either David or Daniel is.
I think
and so George Hunt. So that
Yeah.
matches. And then does the age match? So if we say 18, we know our gal was christened in 65. So 87 minus 23. And Jody, since I think, aren't you an accountant too? So you can
Yes.
probably see, I'm so bad with numbers, but I bet that in a heartbeat, you can tell me if 87 minus 23 is about 65.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So
Awesome. So the age fits. And then the other thing is check the location. So we know that she was christened in Birmingham. And we would, at this time, families in England, especially, this guy's a laborer, which was, what we would call a blue collar job. So those who were not as affluent would not move around that much. They couldn't afford to. They'd stay where they were. So if you look at the top of this record, it says 1887, marriage solemnized in the parish church of Birmingham. Oh, I said Birmingham. Was it really Birmingham where she was christened? Thank you for checking.
Birmingham. Oh, well.
Okay, I apologize. I misspoke. So, but anyway, the thing is, it matches. So they're getting married here in Birmingham. If Jody, if it had said something like Yorkshire, then I would be like, oh, wait a minute, this could be another Hunt family. But where the age matches, the father matches, and the place matches, we can be pretty confident that this really is our family. So we now know that she married a guy named George White. And Jody, what is 1887 minus 28?
Okay, minus 28.
See how I'm making her do the math instead of me?
1859.
So her husband, George, we know he's going to be born about 1859. And can you blow up the record a little bit more? Just because his residence at the time of marriage is really hard to read. So I thought it might help to blow it up. But just because it's hard to read, I'll mention the name of it is Shipston on, and I do not know if any of you from the UK are on this call. Is it Shipston on Stour or Stour? I don't know. But anyway, this is where he was living at the time of his marriage, the parish or city of Shipton on Stour. I'm going to say it that way. And so if we look him up now on those other records and we find that Harriet White's husband is George and he's born in 59 and he's born in Shipston on Stour, then probably that's our guy. So do you want to go back over to, you can go ahead and close this marriage if you want to. Oh, but keep the tab open.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, no. Okay. Now, do you want to know a really cool trick? Because I do this all the time, and I bet everybody on the call would love this. Hold down your Shift and your Control key. Oh, are you on a PC or a Mac?
PC.
Okay, good. Me too. I don't know what it is on a Mac, but I can tell you on a PC. Hold down your Shift key and your Control key and hit the letter T. T is in tab. And what that does is bring back the last tab that you just closed. So Jody, let's go over to the 1911 census over there and just see how well George matches up to what we're expecting. So the easiest way, I'm not sure if I mentioned this last time, the easiest way to get on George's information is scroll down. Well, first of all, we got to see if it's George. It is. And then click on George the dad, or George the husband, I should say. And then it's going to populate his information into this ancestry page so that we can see, is he really born in 59? And is he really from Shipston on Stour?
Yeah.
Aha. So this is looking like a good match, huh?
Yep.
This is like, this never gets old. Just like I told you, Jody, in Relief Society, it's always so exciting to find somebody who needs to be added to their family. I never like to go on just one census record because censuses are notoriously error prone. Names can be misstated, ages can be wrong, relationships can be wrong. So in this one, it's matching up with the marriage. So it's looking pretty good, but still to sanity check, is it okay if we look at that 1891 or 1901 hint over there? Let's just make sure that this is the same George that is with Harriet, that he's born in 59 and born in Shipston on Stour. And if so, I'm feeling pretty confident that we've got the information we need. And I noticed from your cursor that you're pointing out that it's matching up. So shall we add him to family tree?
Yes.
Woohoo! So go ahead and go back to family tree.
Okay.
I just love this, you guys. Just click the add spouse button and then just pop in the information that we know. Now, you do notice what Jody just did? She did one of the most important things that a lot of us forget to do, and that is indicate whether the person's deceased or living. If you don't specify that, the next button will be grayed out. And people I know have sat there looking at the screen for like 10 minutes trying to figure out why the next button wouldn't work. Not clicking deceased or living is one of the most common reasons.
And the birthplace was the Shipton.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep, you got it. And I think it's Shipston, Shipston. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, you want the third one. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you were already going for the right one. Yeah, just a comment. I never like to choose civil registration for England because a civil registration district is a government district. And so it's not really the same as a true geographical place. I mean, the districts can cross counties and so forth, and they can also be misleading because civil registration districts can be named the same as a city or a county, so it can be confusing to people. So anyway, Jody did the right thing by choosing this particular one and not choosing the civil registration. In my opinion, that's not a hard and fast rule. Like, that's not a family search rule or a church rule. That's just my personal suggestion to avoid ambiguity and confusion. So Jody, on this one, here's a trick too that is not always obvious to people. See down at the bottom, there's the option to enter the dad. And so if you hit, oh, and there's an option to enter a wife too, but let's not enter the wife because we already know they weren't connected. But click father and let's enter the dad's name. I'm pretty sure it was Daniel from looking at it. That'll just help us in case a duplicate comes up to see if that's really the guy. But the reason this is confusing sometimes is people think that that's going to add Daniel to family tree, and it's not. It's only going to add George if we find out that he needs to be added. So go ahead and click next. Yep, you're reading my mind totally. It came up with a possible match. Oh my goodness, it came up with 2 possible matches. So, Jody, what do you think of the first one? Do you think that that's probably our George? With his birth year and his place?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've lost your sound a little bit. I don't know if that's for everybody, but I could just hear you very faintly. Now I can hear you.
Sorry, I'm need to talk closer to the microphone.
And then can you just go ahead and click add match on that first one? But then we're also going to need to look at that second one to see if there's some duplicates in here. So now we've got George married to Harriet. Can you go ahead and scroll up? And let's see if any duplicates are coming up. Go ahead and refresh the page. Sometimes the duplicates don't show up right away, but that other one with it had both the husband and wife, which makes me think it was probably a pretty good match. Still not showing up. Let's try this. Jody, can you, because I don't want to, like, if the kids are attached to that other couple, there's no sense in us adding all those kids from the 1911. So can you scroll down and under tools, there's a thing for find similar people. It's the second, yeah, click that. And let's just see if that match that we saw before comes up now. So the first one, and this is one that I kind of wish they would change this. Notice that, Jody, we're looking at Harriet Ann Hunt. At the top, it says MJ V3 QCB. That's who we're on. We asked it to find similar people, but the first person is the same person. So that is potentially confusing. We already know that that's our person. But what do you think of the second person? So is this looking to you like this Harriet Ann Hunt is our Harriet Ann Hunt based on her spouse? So here's a really good lesson from today. What has happened here is that it looks like there have probably been either an incorrect father was joined or a bad merge was done. And it's because we know from the marriage record and from census records that Harriet's dad is not James. But Anne Bennett and Hannah, back in those days, well, even now in England with some dialects, they will drop H's. And so Anne and Hannah can be the same person. So what we'll need to do is troubleshoot this at some point, Jody, and figure out why the dad isn't matching up to what we know is correct from the records. But for today, let's go ahead and click on that second Harriet Ann Hunt, the one that ends in RRQ, and let's just see if they've got any kids attached to them. So go ahead, you can either click the name or the word person in the lower, either the person's name or that little button down there takes you to the person page. And then let's scroll down to the family section, and see if their kids, nope, their kids aren't entered. So let's see how we're doing for time. We've got about 5 more minutes. So Jody, what I would suggest, since we know this record is messed up and we know the other one is correct because we verified it with historical records, let's go back to the original Harriet that we just added George to, and let's add the kids to that record. And then later on, we'll clean up this other one and do any merges that are needed. Does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, cool. So let's go back to the 1911 census and look for one of the kids to add. Oh, in Ancestry, I should have said, sorry.
Oh, here we are. To this one?
Yeah, let's try the 1911 because it will tell us how many kids this couple had and how many may have passed away and how many are still living. It's the only census in England that does that. It's a hugely valuable. Oh, and I don't think it's indexed if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to have to look at the image actually. So while it's loading, it's going to say the names. It's going to say, head of household, blah, blah, blah. It says married 23 years. If you look on George's line, we've got head 52, married 23 years, 6 children, 5 living, and 1 deceased. So in order to make this family complete, we know that we need to find 6 children. That isn't to say they couldn't have had more after 1911, although Harriet is getting to the point where probably she wouldn't have that many more if she had any more at all. And the youngest child is pretty old. But the thing is, I've learned never to assume, because one of my dear friends had a caboose baby after, like, they hadn't had kids for, I don't know, 9 years or something, 10 years. And suddenly there they were. The Lord knew someone else needed to come to their family. So look at the first child there, George W. White. So he's age 20 in 1911. So Jody, I'm going to rely on your accounting skills again. When was George born about, if he was 20 in 1911? Sorry, we lost your sound. At least I lost your sound.
Sorry, 1891.
1891.
Hear me?
Perfect. Yes, I can. Thank you. And then it might be easier to go back out to the index page to read the birthplace. So I would say go ahead and close the image. So go ahead and scroll down and click on George W., the child, and let's just see what his birthplace says. You already calculated the birth year, but Boa Banks, Huntington, that is complete new. Like I've never heard of that place. So we'll be able to see, you know what, since that looks like such an unusual place, Jody, can we click, could you mind clicking on the 1891 census and let's just see what George Jr.'s birthplace is in 1891. Okay, it just says Huntington. So I'm probably feeling a little more comfortable doing Huntington instead of Boa Banks, although it may still be accurate. But let's see what autocomplete does for us. Does that sound okay in Family Search?
When you say autocomplete.
Like what, you know how when, sorry, I should have been more specific. When you start typing a place, Family Search will list a bunch of suggestions that you can complete with it. So that's what I'm thinking is let's see if Huntington comes up. And does that sound okay to you?
Yep, that's great.
Okay, then let's scroll down to them and add George Jr. I'm so excited. And you guys, I just seriously, this is one of the most spiritual experiences. For those of you who help people with family history, it's an incredibly spiritual experience in my experience with people to have them actually add the person. It's like you can feel their joy, because before Jody did what she's doing right now, these people's temple work could not have been done, or at least not accurately. We found that other one with the wrong dad, but what Jody's doing right now is enabling their temple work to be done. So we want the one that says Warwickshire. Yeah, and whether hamlet or parish, I don't know that it makes a lot of difference. A hamlet is smaller than a parish. So, and the thing is, those little designations don't show up on the screen. So I think what you did is perfect. And then we know that George Jr.'s dad's name is George also. So let's put George in just because it helps the search.
You don't ever put the A in, do you, Kathryn?
The A meaning
A up here for
George. Actually I do, the thing, except I was thinking it was a W for George Jr., but I might be wrong. Can we go back and check? Because I thought in the 1911 it was a.
Oh, you're right.
Okay, cool.
You're right.
But this is why teamwork is good, because I wasn't positive, so it was good to verify. And yeah, I like putting the middle name in because it helps differentiate. So to answer your, although later on we could probably, not today, but later on we could find what his whole middle name is. So okay, this time it didn't find a match. So
okay, are we gonna create?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Doesn't
You're confident?
I am, just because we did our due diligence. Oh, I didn't have you change back to the other person. So, because I meant to add him under the couple that we knew, like that she wasn't joined to the wrong parents. But in the end, it's not going to matter because we're going to merge everybody together anyway, if they need merging, or we'll disconnect this wrong James and put the right George in. So this is totally good where it is. Let's go ahead. We've got, I said we're going to stop at 2:45, but let's do 2 more minutes just because on the demo, just because it's so important to add sources, because then people know that we did our due diligence and they know why we're adding the people that we're adding. So go ahead and click on George, his name, sorry. So go ahead and click George's name, or you can click person. Either way, they get you to the same place. And let's just see if there are any hints when the page loads. There's a boatload of them, which is really good. So go ahead and pick whichever one you want over of those hints over there, because I'm pretty sure they're all going to be for him, but we'll verify. And when you click that, after Zoom lets it load, there should be a little flyout. And then Jody, let's just scroll down on this and make sure that it does look like the right family. Oh, Boa Banks.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm curious to know if that's really a place. I've never heard of it, and it may very well be. If somebody wants to Google that on the call, I would be curious to know. But in the meanwhile, Jody, when you look at this family, does it match up with what we had before?
Yes.
Yep. So we're good to review and attach. So click review and attach. And Jody, did we install Simple Fill on your machine? I can't remember if we did or not.
I don't recall.
I don't think we did. So I'll
Okay.
just tell you the reason statement that I usually use here. And you guys, reason statements are so important because they let people know what we were thinking when we did this. So we're attaching a census, and the reason we're attaching it, Jody, can you scroll down so that I can see? You can probably see it on your machine. Yeah, but right above the attach button, there's that reason to attach source. And what I usually give as a reason for a census is provides evidence of, because it's like, why are you attaching this source? Well, we're attaching it because it provides evidence of residence, comma, approximate birth year, comma, birthplace, comma, and family relationships. And that's just kind of a standard generic census reason statement. And then you can click attach. And the cool thing is Family Search will remember this reason statement. So if you could click the compare next to George or between the Georges up there at the top, the dad George.
Oh, compare.
Yeah. And notice that Family Search remembered the reason statement. So now all you have to do, oh, but I forgot. I always like to see where it says add, right where your mouse is. Click add, and that will add the residents to the other information section. So it's just that makes it really easy to see where people lived. It's just a nice list of where, like what census residences they had. So go ahead and click the attach button. And then let's do Harriet really quickly. Same thing. And perfect. And the last thing we want to do is, would you like to reserve George W., George Jr. for temple work?
Absolutely.
Let's do it then. Go ahead and scroll up, and here's a little trick to refresh the screen. If you click, do you see right there at the top, it says go to record, or sorry, it's kind of above attach historical records to family tree. So it's a little lower where yeah. If you click that George W. White, it's going to take you to his page, and it's going to refresh it so that you'll be able to see any sources that have been added, which we just added one. So now you can click ordinances.
Request.
Yeah, request. And the only thing we have to remember is we got to clean up the parents before you actually do the sealing to parents.
Oh, yeah.
But we will do that.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, Jody, thank you. This takes us to the end of the demo. And Jody, you're welcome to hang on if you'd like to for the rest of the class. It'll go till about 3. Well, we usually have Q&A till about 3:15. But you're welcome to stay if you want to, or if you need to get going, please do feel free to sign off. Okay, we are to a good break now, and I see that there's some questions in the Q&A. So let me go ahead and go over there. So let's see. We've got, let's see, Elizabeth said, would you not check out the blue boxes before going to look for records in Ancestry? Elizabeth, that is a really good question. I have just found that Ancestry tends to be a lot more user-friendly as far as hints, and it also tends to bring up more hints. So in this particular case, I had prepared ahead of time and knew that I wanted to guide Jody toward that marriage record, and Family Search didn't have it. At least it didn't come up as a hint. And so for that reason, I wanted to take her over to Ancestry because I knew that marriage record would show up and lead us to the husband and provide really the foundation of the whole experience. But that being said, there have been times when I have used the hint applicant that was already in Family Search. So Elizabeth, and both of them are perfectly viable. It depends on the goal that you're trying to achieve. So Elizabeth, thank you for asking that question. Oh, and Elizabeth commented, refresh, for those of you who are on a PC, Control F5 will do what's called a hard refresh, which like sometimes if you just click the refresh button in the browser, it doesn't totally refresh the page. But if you want to do an absolute hard refresh, do Control F5 and it will just reload the entire page. So Elizabeth, thank you very much for pointing that out. So Randy said, love the demo. Thank you. I'm glad. And what is Simple Fill? Simple Fill is a browser plugin that allows you to define reason statements. And I think it's in our handout. At the end of the class, I will bring up the handout, and if it's not there, I will add it. So in our last few minutes, let's just talk about what went into preparing this discovery experience for Jody today. So I had talked to her beforehand, way back before the Relief Society demo, and just said, what is your goal for family history? And she had a couple of goals, actually. She wanted to learn more about using Family Search, like just getting familiar with it. And I had to write all this down, right? That's how I still remember this after a few months. But she had wanted to learn more about working in Family Search, and she also wanted to find family names for the temple. So that's the goal that I was shooting for when I prepared this discovery experience, the first one and the second. So, oh, how did that happen? Okay, you guys, sorry, I somehow, user error. I just realized it was when I reloaded the page, it bounced it back to the beginning. So we just finished the demo. Now we're to the little kind of teaser for next week, I guess you could say. So the first and most important thing when preparing is to seek and follow the Spirit. When somebody asks me to help them, and in my stake as a stake temple and family history consultant, about 95% of the time, they want to find family names for the temple. So I want to give them a beautiful experience, a spiritual experience, and to help them add names to family tree and to teach them skills that will enable them to keep working and doing family history. So when I'm asked to do a discovery experience and someone says, I want to find temple names or I want to build my tree, the first thing I do is I ask for permission to see their tree, and we'll go into that in more detail next week. But then I bring their tree up and I go to a quiet place. And this is just what works for me. This isn't a hard and fast rule. You don't have to do this. I'm just telling you what has worked for me. Is I will go to that quiet place and I'll bring up the fan chart and I'll just pray to Heavenly Father and say, dear Heavenly Father, please, I'm doing a discovery experience for Jody and I love her and her family, and I really want to have a beautiful experience for her, something that will be meaningful and that will bless her family on the other side. Could you please guide me to know where I need to be working? And then I follow the promptings that come. And again, we're really close to being out of time. And so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail this week, but next week I'll actually walk through what I do with the promptings that I get, because I found that the Lord has never given me a PID. So like I don't go and pray and then I hear this voice from heaven, go to LXWZ-3, that is not what happens. Usually what happens is I'll get promptings that lead me line upon line to the right place. But the point here is seek and follow the Spirit with a humble heart and be willing to listen, and also know that the promptings are going to be line upon line in most cases, at least in my experience. The Lord will be thou humble, and the Lord shall take thee by the hand and give thee answers. Lead thee by the hand and give thee answers to thy prayers. And I found that to be very true in family history, that he'll lead us line upon line if we seek the Spirit and humbly listen. So that's like the whole foundation. And then the steps that I follow are, first of all, ask the person their goal. And then using that goal, find a place of success that will enable them to grow in confidence and achieve that goal. And then finally, write down the plan, because I don't know if you're like me, but if I don't write it down, it's out of my brain when I give a discovery experience. And you can do that in the helper, or excuse me, what is it even called these days? I think it's just called the planner. So that is on helper resources, which we will be talking about next week. So this is just a very high level overview of what I did to prepare for this discovery experience with Jody today. And I also wanted to let you see what my lesson plan looked like. So when I said write down the plan, I actually am an instructional designer by profession. So I have a degree in instructional design and I know how to do a very formal lesson plan. As a consultant, I honestly don't think that's necessary. So that's why I wanted to say I have the background, and so I know what it means to do a high-level lesson plan, a really formal one that you'd submit to your curriculum director or whatever. It's just not necessary for this type of thing. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed by the idea of somebody saying, do a lesson plan, please don't feel overwhelmed. You notice I just wrote this down very conversationally. Last time we worked on Arthur, he has a younger sister. Let's review the siblings, click on ancestry. Just very straightforward bullet points, the kind of thing that I would hope all of us would feel comfortable just jotting down those notes so that we know what we're going to do when we actually have the discovery experience. So that brings us to the end of class today. We talked about what a helper is. We talked about what a discovery experience is. We had the demo, and then we gave the little tips for preparing, which we will expand upon next week. So with that being said, we've got a class handout. Let me just pop over here and grab the URL. Oh, and I wanted to see if we did have the link to Simple Fill. We do not. So you guys, I will add it. I will add the link to that information in here so that you have it. But let me just pop this URL in the chat so that you can get here. Oh, now I've got to find the chat. That's always the trick after I've got like so many windows open. Okay, so the link that I just put in the chat will take you to this handout. And again, I promise I'll put the Simple Fill stuff in after the class today.